Breaking news today, ladies and gentlemen. We have officially entered the Twilight Zone meets the Matrix. Oh, yeah. So buckle up, buttercups. Let's go. I'm going to share as much information as I can, rapid fire style, because we have over a dozen headlines to look at today. So let's just jump right in. Oh, and has anyone told you today that you're awesome? Because you are. ICE agent who fatally shot Renee Good reportedly suffered internal bleeding, according to federal sources. That changes things a little bit. A lot of questions about that. 11 Colorado schools have received threats prompting lockdowns and major law enforcement response. Trump escalates pressure on Greenland and Iran as global tensions rise on multiple fronts. Germany calls for a European military brigade to be stationed in Greenland. Iran issues threats amid mass protests, executions, and international condemnation. Trump tells Iranians to keep protesting, saying help is on the way. Iran places its military on high readiness as fears of U.S. strikes grow. Iranian families abroad say loved ones are unreachable as shootings and blackouts continue. Also, free Starlink access inside Iran could change the balance of protest communications. U.S. reportedly suspending visa proceedings and processing, I should say, for visitors from 75 countries. The FBI raids home of Washington Post reporter, sparking press freedom concerns. Germany charges 2 men accused of planning sabotage attacks for Russia. Suicide drones came within 1 mile of a U.S. destroyer defending Israel. NATO says Russian losses in Ukraine are pushing Moscow towards a breaking point. UK considers special forces actions against Russia's shadow fleet oil tankers. 7 sanctioned oil tankers reportedly turned back as U.S. Caribbean blockade tightens. Drones attacked 3 oil tankers in the Black Sea near key export routes. China rapidly expanding nuclear submarine production, raising U.S. naval concerns. China now operates more warships than the U.S. as new frigates enter service. And Kiefer Sutherland was arrested following an altercation with a rideshare driver. I wanted to say something more, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And articles of impeachment reportedly being drafted against Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. That's a lot to talk about. And before we get into all of this, I did want to thank our friends over at Noble Gold Investments. So I've been with Noble Gold now for, over 6 years. I've been talking about gold and silver and platinum for over 6 years. Huge fan of gold and silver. I consider myself a silver tard. And if you're over 40 and if you're planning to retire someday, the window to protect what you've built may be smaller than you realize. Here's a question most people never ask. Is your portfolio built for what's coming next? Many investors in their 40s and 50s discover they have little to no exposure to precious metals. That means their savings are largely tied to markets, policies, politics, and paper assets, with very little protection if conditions change. As retirement moves from someday to on the horizon, protecting what you've already built becomes just as important as growing it. That's why Noble Gold Investments is a great opportunity, and that's where Noble Gold Investments comes in, helping investors like yourself reduce risk by adding physical gold to their portfolios. Right now may be a smart time to talk with Noble Gold Investments. You can give them a call at 877-646-5347. A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, tons of 5-star reviews, no pressure, no sales gimmicks, just clear answers and a strategy built around your goals. If you go to noblegoldinvestments.com, you want to let them know Rex from Leap Project sent you, and I'm going to show you why. Say, hey, I'm interested in converting my 401 or IRA into precious metals. I heard that if I do so, if I qualify, I can get a 3-ounce American Virtues Independent silver round. This is available for new qualified accounts. Just let them know Rex from Leap Project sent you. Have you seen the price of an ounce of silver lately? Wow, all-time highs. A lot of experts see no end in sight. There's obviously never any guarantees. So you follow what the big banks and the money funders are doing. And there is a lot of opportunities right now in gold and silver. So take advantage of this opportunity and find out about the 3-ounce coin. Find out about your free protection wealth kit as well. And let's get into this. Let's start right now with the first article that I wanted to share with you. Very, very unsettling. Also, I mean, I've got family in Colorado. My son goes to school in Colorado, so I haven't been able to find out yet if this is one of the schools, but let's go to the article. Let me pull this up because 11 schools are in lockdown right now in Colorado, according to the latest reports. 11 Colorado schools received threats, several on lockdown. Several Colorado schools are on lockdown after receiving threats on Wednesday morning, according to the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management staff in the State Emergency Operations Center and the Colorado Information Analysis Center. DHSEM is working with local law enforcement to investigate the schools that received threats. Although no credible threats have currently been identified, according to Colorado Emergency Management, the agency said that 11 Colorado schools received threats by phone, but did not disclose which schools are included in that 11. Oh, not good. And stuff like this has happened before. I was actually reading an article, it wasn't that long ago, something very similar happened to Colorado and the Colorado schools. And they think it's what's referred to as swatting, where you get prank calls, say something major and extreme, and then the SWAT team shows up. It's a nightmare. This is a bad situation. And I really hope they find the people that did this. And there's probably some kids, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same kids that did it before, because it was 11 schools before. So they need to nip this right now. Anyway, that was the first headline that I wanted to share with you. And the next headline, very interesting. And I'm wondering why this didn't come out sooner. Now, interesting. So ICE agent who shot Renee Good suffered internal bleeding, officials say. This is CBS News. The Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent who fatally shot Renee Good last week in Minneapolis, Jonathan Ross, suffered internal bleeding to the torso following the incident, according to 2 U.S. officials briefed on his medical condition. It was unclear how extensive the bleeding was. The Department of Homeland Security confirmed Ross' injury, but has not yet responded to CBS News requests for more information. The story will be updated as we learn more. Ross has not returned to work, one source said, but did not say why. Well, if he has internal bleeding, that might have something to do with it. I'm just wondering, what hospital did he go to? We didn't hear anything about this until just a short while ago. So very interesting. We'll keep up to date on that. And the Senate is eyeing war powers vote. You can read about this at The Hill. The White House is turning up pressure on 2 realms, Iran and Denmark, and Greenland. President Trump on Wednesday morning declared that total U.S. control of Greenland is the only option. A White House meeting with Vice President Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and foreign ministers of Denmark and Greenland has ended. Yeah, it just happened. A bipartisan bill has emerged in the Senate to try to stop any purchase of the Arctic territory. Iran protests have left over 2,500 people dead, and Trump has threatened to respond with strikes against the country's repressive regime. But Washington is divided over that prospect, with Democrats and several Republicans vocally opposed. Germany calls for European brigade to be stationed in Greenland. Read about that. I have notes I'd like to share with you. So, Military NYI reports Patrick Sensberg, which is the chairman of the German Reservists Association, is calling for stationing a European brigade in Greenland, arguing Europe must demonstrate serious presence in the region described as under Danish command amid the broader Greenland tension. He stressed that Germany would bear special responsibility in this process and that Bundeswehr would gain strategic advantages by training soldiers in the challenging Arctic conditions. The head of the union also emphasized that such a joint operation would strengthen European unity and demonstrate the continent's readiness to act independently in the field of security. Iran signals plans for fast trials and executions for detained protesters, despite U.S. warning. AP reports an escalating exchange of threats between President Trump and senior Iranian leadership figures as protests spread, and the Iranian state signals harsher responses, including fast-track trials, executions for detainees, per related AP coverage. This framing is consistent with the broader picture, rising death toll claims from rights groups. I think over 2,500 now is being reported, mass detentions, and international warnings. I got to say this, like, if you're in Iran and you're protesting, you have balls, metaphorically speaking. Like, that takes a lot of guts to do that, especially with the previous situations that have happened in Iran and protesters and detainees and just complete annihilation of many of these protesters. It's pretty spooky. So they obviously have faith that the U.S. is going to intervene or that something's going to happen at these top levels, because if not, a lot of these protesters are probably going to be tracked down throughout the weeks and months and years ahead, unless something changes at the higher levels. Now, that's just my thoughts on this. Trump promises help is on the way, though, and tells Iranians to keep protesting. U.S. president gives his clearest signal yet that he might take military action against Tehran over killing of demonstrators. The Guardian reports Trump publicly encouraging Iranian protests to continue demonstrations and implying help is on the way, a message widely interpreted as signaling protest U.S. action. The Guardian also reports the U.S. imposing a 25% tariff on countries trading with Iran, while European leaders condemn repression and apply sanctions, but stop short of endorsing military action. Yeah. Iranian battle. Iran is definitely on the dinner plate. Iran latest. U.S. staff told to leave base in Qatar after Tehran threatens attack in major escalation. A senior Iranian commander said Tehran is at the peak of our readiness to respond to any strike on Iran amid President Donald Trump's threats. The U.S. is pulling staff from a military base in Qatar after Tehran warned it would strike American targets in the region if Donald Trump orders strikes on Iran. Tehran warned countries in the region that it would also attack if the U.S. engages in military action in Iran in response to the regime's deadly repression of ongoing protests, a measure President Trump has been threatening for days. The U.S. is now reducing the number of personnel at its Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the Middle East's largest U.S. base housing 10,000 troops. Wow. The Guardian, they were just shooting everyone. Iranian Australians left distraught with no confirmation their family is safe. While some Iranian Australians have received calls from loved ones in Iran, others remain in limbo amid communications blackout. Almost a week into Iran's communications blackout, Iranian-Australian activist Mohammed Hashemi received a call from his home country. His brother late on Tuesday relayed that his family was safe, but relief proceeded quickly as he detained the horror of the Iranian authorities' response to the country's escalating mass anti-regime demonstrations. He saw with his eyes many people were killed in front of him and how they were just shooting everyone, Hashemi says. When I heard the stories, what happened to people, I was crying about the situation and what's going on in our country. Yeah, it's bad news. I mean, wasn't there also reports that the Iranian currency went to zero? Like, went to zero according to what? Comparing it to the US dollar? Does it mean that if you're in Iran and you try to go buy something at the store, you can't use your currency in Iran anymore to buy stuff? We'll look into that in a minute. However, how would you like free Starlink? Because if you're in Iran, you might get it. Free Starlink access for Iran seen as game changer for demonstrators. SpaceX's Starlink has dropped fees to help Iranian demonstrators share protest details globally, activists say. And the U.S. is going to suspend visa processing for 75 nations, the State Department says. We're in the twilight zone, ladies and gentlemen. America used to be the most accessible country from other countries for, global travel. And it's kind of reminded me a bit of what took place before World War II in a certain country. Are they using a similar blueprint, but updated? What are your thoughts? Like masked? Anyway, that's a whole other podcast. We'll talk about that later. The FBI raids home of Washington Post reporter in a highly unusual and aggressive move. Agents searched Hannah Natansen's Virginia home and seized devices in inquiry tied to a classified materials case. The FBI raided the home of a Washington Post reporter early Wednesday in what the newspaper called a highly unusual and aggressive move by law enforcement, and press freedom groups condemned it as a tremendous intrusion by the Trump administration. Well, did she release classified information? Because if she did, that's probably why the FBI showed up. I'm just saying. If you're going to release classified information, especially related to the Pentagon or the military, right now, you're probably going to get raided by the FBI. They're probably going to come in your house and find out what the hell is going on and what other information you want. I'm just saying, if she didn't think anything was going to happen by releasing classified information, she wasn't thinking. But that's just my opinion. Agents descended on the Virginia home of Hannah Natanson as part of an investigation into a government contractor accused of illegally retaining classified government materials. The Post is reviewing and monitoring the situation, a source at the newspaper said. Wow. And in German news, in Germany, 2 men were charged with planning attacks for Russia. 2 Ukrainians have been accused of planning sabotage attacks for Russian spy services. Meanwhile, Germany's foreign minister has played down the U.S. threat to Greenland. Yeah, they want to put a brigade out there. And naval news, suicide drones closed within a mile of U.S. destroyer defending Israel in June. The USS Thomas Hudner engaged unidentified suicide drones on the first evening of ballistic missile defense operations off the coast of Israel, including one engagement with the 5-inch Mark 45 deck gun as the drone closed within minimum engagement distance of the ship's missile systems, according to a U.S. Navy official speaking with Naval News on condition of anonymity. You know what? That was one of my predictions for 2026, but it looked like it happened earlier in the year. However, this news was just released today. You should go back and look at the predictions we made at the end of 2023 for 2024, 2025, 2026, and beyond. Very detailed on a lot of those forecasts, and at least half of those forecasts hit. And some of those partial hits. Then we made 66 forecasts and predictions for 2026 and beyond. And several of those have already hit. And we've got a long year ahead of us, folks. So that's why you want to be a Patreon member. And that's why you want to watch Leak Project. If you want to know the future of politics and industry and innovation and news, headlines, weather, it's all there. So anyway. It's because I've been doing this for over 20 years, and it's been a big part of my life for over 20 years. So something I've always been good at is forecasting future events, and I'm sure you're getting pretty good at it too, especially if you're watching Leak Project. Oh yeah, this isn't good. No power or water and negative 19 Celsius temperatures. Kyiv seeks relief from Russian strikes and cold. At a suburban Kyiv railway station, 2 carriages painted in the blue and white livery of Ukrainian railways sit on the main platform, their diesel engines running as snow steadily falls. The train's not going anywhere, but it's providing a vital service for dozens of people who have been left without power and basics like running water or heating. And people complain in the U.S. because they don't get free food. Why don't you go live in Ukraine for a little while and then tell us how bad the U.S. is, okay? This is a nightmare. Imagine having a family in Ukraine and it's 20 degrees below outside. You have no food, you have no water, you have no heat, and missiles and bombs and suicide drones are going off all around you. Yet people in the U.S. are complaining that they can't get free junk food with their SNAP benefits. Wow. It's all about perception sometimes. So the Ukrainian invincibility trains, designed to boost public morale and provide some comfort as a bitter winter coincides with intensifying Russian attacks. In one of the carriages, Alina sits watching her infant son, Taras, playing with toys provided by international charities who help run the service. It's winter and it's rather cold outside, says Alina, which is something of an understatement, with the effect of the wind chill. Temperatures this week in Kyiv have hit negative 19 Celsius. It is bitterly cold. And that's because the power stations, the electrical grid was decimated by Russian attacks. And now people are freezing with their families. Business Insider, Russian massive losses in Ukraine have it heading towards a breaking point. NATO's top officials say Russian military is suffering heavy losses fighting in Ukraine with up to 25,000 soldiers killed a month. NATO's top civilian officials said this week, calling the carnage unsustainable for Moscow. Well, they're not slowing down. So they're not slowing down at all. If anything, they're ramping up the pressure. And in other news, The Independent, Russian shadow fleet ships could be seized by British forces. And the development comes after the UK supported a U.S. operation to seize a Russian-flagged tanker in the North Atlantic. Russian shadow fleet ships could be seized by British special forces. By British special forces after ministers reportedly identified a new legal basis for raids. Soldiers could target illegal oil tankers in a move to place further economic pressure on Vladimir Putin, days after the UK supported a U.S. operation to seize a Russian-flagged tanker in the North Atlantic. So if President Putin and President Trump are so close, I'm just asking a question because a lot of people think they're close. How do you think Putin feels about this? How do you think Vladimir Putin feels about the U.S. going into Venezuela and taking Maduro and then taking control of oil assets? Unless they've got some secret deals behind the scenes that we don't know about, I don't think he'd be very happy about it. So it's just going to, like, if they're buddies, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. I'm just bringing that up because I've read so many reports of people think that President Trump and Putin are working together in hopes of pulling out of NATO, deconstructing NATO. And I mean, that is interesting, though, about what is going on with NATO, what's going on with Greenland and the U.S. and these Russian oil tankers, the Russian shadow fleet. And the news is so good at sharing headlines that contradict each other, especially, the mainstream news does it better than anybody. You think the alternative news is good at clickbait? The mainstream news invented clickbait. They have so much money and so much power and so many connections with clandestine operations. It's hard to compete against a mainstream news outlet that has hundreds of millions of dollars of funding when you're in your garage or your basement with a green screen. I mean, but at the same time, it's a lot of ingenuity, innovation, being real, and admitting when you're wrong. That goes a long way. Has the mainstream been any of those things for quite some time? Do they ever admit when they're wrong? Like, kind of, but then they just, anyway, whole other podcast. Sorry. Soldiers could target illegal oil tankers. A defense source confirmed to the Times that options to seize further vessels are being considered. No timeframes have been given for potential missions, but the Special Boat Service would likely lead the raids. 7 shadow fleet tankers turned back in 24 hours as U.S. Caribbean blockade tightens, United 24 Media. At least 7 oil tankers linked to Venezuela's so-called shadow fleet reversed course within a single day to avoid interception by U.S. forces operating in the Caribbean, a Pentagon spokesperson said January 10. According to the statement, the U.S. blockade targeting illicit oil shipments in the Caribbean Sea remains fully in force and is already forcing sanctioned vessels to abandon their routes rather than risk interdiction. And drone attack 3 oil tankers in Black Sea. Reuters. This was another prediction similar. Actually, one of the forecasts we made for 2026 leak project is there's going to be at least one aircraft carrier that's going to get swarmed with unidentified drones, potentially more, but at least one large carrier is going to be swarmed by drones this year. That's a prediction. We just found out that they did it last year. The news came out after the predictions. So maybe it was classified before, but now that we're talking about it, it's on the mainstream. Anyway, probably not. But drones attacked 3 oil tankers operated by Greek companies in the Black Sea. The ships were heading to load oil at the Caspian pipeline Confrontation terminal off the coast of Russia. This was reported by Reuters and according to Ukrinform. According to the publication's sources, the tankers Delta Harmony, Delta Supreme, and Matilda were attacked on Tuesday as they were en route to the Yuzhnaya Ozryayevka terminal near Novorossiysk, where approximately 80% of Kazakh oil destinated for international markets is loaded. I totally just destroyed those words. I'm sorry. My bad. English isn't my first language. But China's stepping up their submarine fleet, overtaking Russia's as production surge expands numbers. You can read about this Military Watch magazine. The latest estimates for the size of the Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy's nuclear-powered submarine fleet indicated that it has overtaken that of the Russian Navy in size, making it the second largest only to that of the U.S. Navy. A primary driver of this trend has been the large-scale production of the Type 093B class attack submarine, of which 16 are estimated to have began. 16 nuclear-powered subs, an additional 16 powered on top of 32 active? Wow. Holy smoking. So the Navy is currently estimated to fill 32 active nuclear-powered submarines compared to an estimated 25 to 28 in the Russian Navy, including 9 older Type 093, 093A class attack. 93. Why did they pick the number 93? 93. Alistair Crowley. Thelema, 93. Anyway, it just came to my mind. 9 Type 9. Oh, they got 94s as well. So maybe it's the 93rd model. Like they're up to 93 now. The first 92, now they're at 93 and 94. Type 94, 94A ballistic missile submarines, and 14 Type 93B class submarines, attack submarines. Relatively little is known about the Type 93B class, although it is expected to integrate the YJ-20 hypersonic ballistic missiles and YJ-19 hypersonic cruise missiles, yay, as a primary armament system. The U.S. will just use lasers. They'll just use lasers to shoot it down. And to be the last variant of the Type 93 class design as production shifts to the newer Type 95 class. Oh, I guess, yeah. We're up to 95 now. China gets more warships as U.S. waits on new frigate. China continues to expand its fast-growing Navy, already the world's largest by whole count, as it fielded a new frigate. State media reported on Monday a type of vessel the United States, its military rival, is expected to introduce as early as 2028. China's Central Television reported that CNS Linfen, a new variant of the Type 54A frigate, was a more powerful naval gun and expanded aviation facilities for helicopters, has been commissioned into service with the People's Liberation Army Navy. They're getting ready for Taiwan, but I don't think they're going to get it. And there's a couple of nations out there right now that are basically banning U.S. travelers because of what the U.S. is doing. As of January 2026, Mali and Burkina Faso have explicitly announced bans on U.S. citizens based on the principle of reciprocity. No. Yes, reciprocity. I'm saying that word wrong, aren't I? I know I'm saying the word wrong, but my mind won't let me say it right for some reason. For other destinations, while the U.S. government issues do not travel advisories for countries with security and safety concerns, this does not mean the host country has an official entry ban for U.S. citizens. U.S. citizens can generally still travel to these countries if they obtain the necessary visas, though doing so is at their own risk. Yeah, like why would you want to go there after a threat like that? I don't know, maybe for a YouTube video. They're like, well, let's go see what's going to happen. Although when you have 420,000 subscribers and you share the notifications out on Facebook, X, before it's news, Rumble, and 160 people show up for the live stream, it makes you question if you're that boring or if people aren't getting notifications. Like, let's do the math on that. 0.003% of your followers have showed up to today's podcast, Rex. You're that boring. They have other stuff to do. Yes. It is a little unsettling. It is. When I've spent, 10 years building up a platform in hopes of at least my subscribers getting notifications. And when I have dozens of people leaving the comments days and weeks later, Rex, I was unsubscribed. I never got a notification. I'm so glad you're still here. And thank you for the nice words. Thank you for the nice words. That makes me feel better. But it's just weird. Like, why? Why would you shadow ban me? For what reason? I'm not extreme on either side. We're looking at the news. We're reading the news reports. So why? I'm in the basement. Oh, it's because, anyway, it doesn't, whatever. Kiefer Sutherland is arrested and accused of assaulting a rideshare driver, LA police say. Kiefer Sutherland, he went full 24 on the rideshare driver. I wonder what happened. Like, I don't see Kiefer Sutherland just being an asshole and beating the shit out of somebody in an Uber. Like, what did they say to him that made him light up? What was said? I mean, I guess maybe he learned in 24, special forces how to be just some super badass. And this rideshare driver was harassing him. And he was like, you know what? I've had enough of this. I'm going to kick your ass. I mean, I don't know. I'm speculating here. Maybe he was having a bad day. I don't know. But Kiefer Sutherland goes full 24 on rideshare driver in LA. And Walz is, look at this. So Tim Walz, I don't know enough about this guy to give my own opinion on him. I just know what the news shows, and we all know how the news can be. But look at these headlines. This is wild. So Walz slammed for flip-flop after praising fraud prosecutor he said should be fired last week. Don't pretend. Fox News. So last week, allegedly, Tim Walz is praising a fraud. So he's knocking somebody a week ago, and then politically speaking, he changes his tune. See, this is the whole thing about the right and left. Like, they're on a team. They care about their team. They don't care about the audience. Who's the audience? You're a part of the audience. We're a part of the audience. They care more about their team than they do the outcome, unless the outcome affects their team. That's my opinion. Tim Walz, articles of impeachment. So some Republicans are calling for Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to be impeached amid allegations of fraud in the state. Yeah. And did you hear about the Native American, I can't remember the name of the nation being people being nice. Yes, right here, ABC News. The Oglala Sioux tribe says 3 tribal members arrested in Minneapolis are in ICE detention. The president of the tribe in South Dakota said 3 of the 4 tribal members detained by ICE agents in Minneapolis last week have been transferred to an ICE facility and called for their immediate release. Wow. That's interesting. That's interesting. So, like, even the native tribes have to deal with ICE. So this is pretty interesting times we live in, folks. Pretty interesting times. I say be prepared, not scared. Research. Be careful what you believe, because beliefs can be very dangerous. Relax. Don't let social media piss you off so bad that you're going to be that person that leaves a comment on social media that you wish you wouldn't have left after you read it. You're like, why the hell did I just leave that comment? Should I really have left that comment? And how many people are falling for artificial intelligence right now? A lot of the population. Very smart people. I have a good friend that is a movie director for a large production company that has made multi-million-dollar movies. He sent me a link a couple weeks ago that he thought was Professor Loeb talking about Three-Eye Atlas. The video was so good that you had there's a couple of key things you can look for specifically with AI videos to show that it's not real. And I don't want to bring that out yet publicly and say what it is, because I'm concerned that if I do that, these AI programmers are going to take that information and use it to make their AI even better. But I will share it with you if you want to send me an email or something like that. I'll be happy to talk to you about it, or in person. But I was like, no, that's artificial intelligence. He's like, no way. I'm like, yeah, that's artificial intelligence. He said, no, this blows my mind. Look, you can see. So anyway, I had to send him a link from Professor Loeb's own website saying that he just went to YouTube and had a bunch of videos that were not him pretending to be him taken off. I've seen that with Robert De Niro. I've seen that with that one dude that I keep forgetting his name. It starts with a K. I've seen it with Professor Loeb. And I've even had family members send me videos saying, is this really that person? Why does it say artificial intelligence on the top left? And I said, because it's artificial intelligence. If artificial intelligence continues to improve the way that it has just over the past 2 years, it's going to be even more difficult to tell if it's legit or not. And it's going to be used to influence the minds of millions of people, whether for good or for bad. So maybe there should be some type of safeguards in place that prevent this artificial intelligence from being blasted everywhere and making people think that it's actually a real person. I think what's going to happen, now this is just my own opinion, but I think there's going to be somebody out there that is extremely wealthy and has a lot of power, and there's going to be some artificial intelligence rendering of that person or of those people that's going to make the mainstream, and it's going to upset these people so much they're going to sue the out of these organizations that are promoting this nonsense, and they're going to come up with a new law or bill to prevent that from happening. Now, that's just my theory. I could be way off on this, but even if that happens, and that's not, I mean, so I'm all for freedom of speech and freedom of expression and freedom of religion and freedom of belief. I love that. So even if that bill passes, it's going to take away. I don't see it being good either way. So what do we do as a civilization? What do we do as people? Well, we have to know what's going on. We have to do our own research. We have to be prepared, not scared. We have to be very careful what we believe, and we have to look for multiple sources to verify the news. I don't want to see more laws and bills in place to take away our freedoms. That's the opposite of what I want to see. What I do want to see is people realizing that that's artificial intelligence, and there being some type of safeguard out there without taking away our freedom of expression and our freedom of view and our freedom of belief and our freedom to speak and freedom to gather. I don't know. It's like, so what do you think we should do as a society in reference to this artificial intelligence that disguises itself as real people, that gets spread on multiple platforms, shared with millions of people? Then when people like myself are attempting to get to the truth and be very neutral and be very balanced, we get 200 people show up in the live stream when we have 420,000 subscribers. So people that are genuine, wanting to share truth and news without going after, without being nasty about it, we get shadow banned. But then you have the extremes that are oftentimes full of it, and they get millions of views. How does that work? I don't know. But I'll just work harder, and I will just brainstorm ideas to continue to get this information out there, because I think it's important. And I think it's important that you know about this kind of stuff. And I think it's important that you have the ability to think for yourself and not get suckered into believing some artificial intelligence nonsense. I don't know why I'm so passionate about that, but I am. I've always been passionate about people being able to think for themselves and not being suckered into nonsense for a select group of people that make billions of dollars profiting off of BS and nonsense. I don't know why. Because most people drive me crazy. I love them, but they drive me crazy. You won't see me in big crowds very often. I don't know. So that's just a little, that's some personal information about me, which if you didn't know, now you do, and maybe you didn't want to know, but I'm very passionate about people being able to receive the truth and be able to make their own decisions and not being suckered into believing something's good for them when it's completely the opposite. Oh, that makes me mad. So anyway, that's my rant. Thank you for listening. I hope you all have a, whoa, who just gave me $20? Who was that? Now that's very, very nice of you, Gabrielle. Thank you very much. I'm very much appreciated. Thank you for the super chat. That is so awesome. These comments are great. I love you guys and gals. Thank you so much for being here. And if you would, please subscribe to our Patreon page and please subscribe to our Rumble page. And we offer a lot of free content on Patreon as well. I've got like hundreds of interviews with amazing guests from around the world over the past 10 plus years, like long format interviews that are available on our Patreon page. And we do lives on Rumble as well. And on that note, thank you everybody for being here. I mean, I love YouTube. I do. I love YouTube. I've been on YouTube for years and there's so many amazing people that I've met here on YouTube. It would just be nice if I could figure out what I need to do to get my subscribers, our subscribers, notifications. That would be awesome. So if you have any ideas on that, please let me know. Be excellent to each other. Be the change you want to see. I'm going on a bike ride.